Another broadhead test time. This time we're doing a Wasp Archery, brand new broadhead. In fact, this is a prototype, so we've only got a couple of them, so our test is not going to be include as many elements as prior because we don't have enough broadheads. Now, the design of these isn't going to change, they just aren't in production yet, so we only have a couple of them. This is the new Jak-Knife. Now, if you've followed Wasp Archery at all, you know that they kind of pioneered over-the-top expandable broadheads with the jackhammer, and it's been arguably the most successful broadhead, the mechanical broadhead design of all time. The Jak-Knife is a two-blade, 2-inch cut. It uses a neoprene rubber O-ring just like the jackhammer does, but it has two blades with a massive, a 2-inch cutting diameter. So before we get started, there's a couple things that make this broadhead a little bit different than maybe other mechanicals, and it starts with the blades. These blades are thicker than most mechanical broadheads. I think they are 040 thick, and they're hardened in a manner that allows them to flex without breaking. So the theory is that if they encounter something that they can't quite get through, they will flex and go around bone, ribs, and things like that. Chisel stainless steel tip, the aluminum ferrule, pretty basic, what you'd expect out of a jackhammer style broadhead, but it's in two blades. So I have my bow set up for bow hunting, so I'm going to shoot a Wasp drone, which is what I have been hunting with. Make sure it's hitting where it's supposed to, then we'll screw this on and make sure it hits in the same spot, and we'll start trying to test the penetration. Now for the tire, steel belted radial tire. This has been the absolute nemesis of every mechanical broadhead that we've tested. And it does make sense. It's got a thick layer of rubber, steel belts. It's a hard thing to punch through, and when you're opening, right when it's opening is when we're grabbing it with all that tire material. The best penetration I think we've got out of this has been the Wasp jackhammer. It did get through the first layer. They don't get to the second layer. Many mechanicals that we've tested, they don't get through that first layer because of the way they deploy, and maybe this is a bad test for mechanical head, but to keep things consistent, we're gonna do it. And when you get a mechanical that will penetrate that first layer, you've got a mechanical that's gonna penetrate pretty good. So we'll see what this does. So I had a brief moment of panic when the arrow hit. What I saw is the tail end of the arrow go up. So I thought we had, some sort of deflection. Well, it's not what happened. We set the tire up a little bit differently than normally, so we didn't have a solid backstop. When it hit, it moved the tire, lifted the arrow end, so all is good on that front. And actually the broadhead did pretty well. It penetrated the first layer, it's deployed. It's not completely all the way through, but like I said, we've not yet got a mechanical to do that. So that's what we want to see. We want to see it, hit hard enough and be able to deploy and get through. Remember, this is two blades that are 2 inches wide, opening immediately when they hit the point of the most resistance, and it still penetrated. So that's pretty good results. We're going to be able to see better on our next test, which is 3/8 inch plywood, overall penetration, because it's not going to be hitting that rubber. It's going to hit that 3/8 inch plywood, which it should go through and deploy, and we'll see how far that energy will carry. But we're going to try to get the blades out and take a look at them, but sometimes we can and sometimes we can't. So next up is 3 layers, 3/8 inch plywood spaced roughly 2 to 3 inches apart, maybe 3.5, 4, I don't remember what we measured it at, but this is a great test for penetration and durability both. The very best broadheads, generally speaking, in terms of penetration, have been fixed blades. We've had them go through all 3 layers. I think our best mechanical went through the first 2 and touched the third, but didn't have any penetration in it. So if we can get this through 2 layers, I'll be impressed. This is a big 2-inch wide cutting diameter. So let's see what she does. So that's pretty solid penetration for a 2-inch cutting broadhead. I'm gonna go ahead and take these off and see if I can. Now it's hard to do that, but it went through 2 layers obviously and almost hit the 3rd. And the difference, one thing you got to know, the difference with over-the-top style mechanicals, they do not open. They're not going to be fully open when you hit this first layer. You know, they unfold, so they have to go in and then they start to open. So obviously in our first layer it was not fully open because that's not how the broadhead works. But it should be fully opened on the 2nd layer, and it looks like one of the blades certainly was. The other one I can't really tell because I can't see the cut. But to get through 2 layers of 3/8" plywood is as good, if not better, than any mechanical we've tested, and this is a 2-inch cutting diameter. That's a lot of surface to plow through, so penetration test was a plus. Just wait. If the front one turns the right angle, I'll shoot her. Okay. Meh. Go down. Alright, well, we recovered that doe that I shot, and it got really windy and raining hard, so we had to put the camera away, so I wasn't able to actually video the recovery. But like I said, I was using a new, I guess it's sort of a prototype broadhead. I mean, they're not going to change much on the broadhead, but they aren't manufacturing yet, to my knowledge, and it's a Wasp Jak-Knife. Now, the jackhammer is their popular over-the-top 3-blade mechanical. The Jak-Knife is a 2-blade with a 2-inch cut, and you got to see what it did to this deer, because I'm actually pretty surprised. I'm not a huge fan of mechanicals because I'm not sure you need it because they don't penetrate as well. But when you start to get into that 2-inch cut, that's pretty impressive. But I was worried about penetration. But I hit this deer quartering away at about 27, 28 yards. It went forward and hit this offside shoulder. And when the deer ran off, I thought it didn't penetrate that great because I could see a lot of the arrow. Well, that's not so true because the point of the broadhead is right here, coming out of this front shoulder, and it broke the bone, which is insane. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut this apart, start processing the deer. And once I get down to the shoulder, we'll take another look at it and I'll try to get the broadhead out and we'll see. But the entrance hole is massive. Now, that's one of the things people say about over the tops is they don't have a big entrance hole. Well, this one has a big old slice in it. So it deployed right when it was supposed to, went up into this shoulder, broke that bone. I'm pretty impressed. So we're gonna cut her up and see what the broadhead looks like. All right, so I got to clean up a little bit, and this right here is the actual shoulder blade, the scapula, and it's actually not in that. I was wrong. It's in this front leg bone, right at the top, which is the hardest part, thickest part of that knob. And you can just see this right here is a bone fragment. We got one blade that I can see, and it is fully extended all the way over here. I can't see the other blade at all. It's in that knob of it's right in that joint. Man, it held together. Shattered that bone. The back side of it, I don't know if you can get in there tight. This is where it went in. So right here is the slice that it made, and it broke that bone on the way in and went up. The other blade is, I can see right there is the arrow shaft that's broke off. That's a big old 2-inch cut broadhead that did an absolute number on a very hard bone.